I was kidnapped. He was blamed. Our love was tested like never before. But even in the darkest hour, the truth had a way of rising. And when it did, it didn't just clear Jackson's name, it proved that real love doesn't break. It fights. It survives. It wins. This is our story of heartbreak, hope, and a love that never let go. I sincerely appreciate all the efforts you put on this channel. I promise, I see them all. Remember, hitting on the subscribe button and notifications will help in the growth of this channel. Your comments go a long way as well, for they'll never go unseen. If you had told me back then that love could survive pain, lies, and even prison bars, I wouldn't have believed you. But now I know better, because I lived it. My name is Chelsea, and this is the story of Jackson and me, two young souls who loved without limits. Ours was not just a high school love story. It was deeper than the rumors, stronger than fear, and more real than anyone could imagine. It all started in 11th grade. Jackson wasn't the loud type. He kept to himself most of the time, but his eyes always had this spark, like he saw things others didn't. I noticed him before he noticed me. He was tall, quiet, and always wore the same worn-out hoodie like it was his armor. I was more outspoken, a bit dramatic, and full of dreams. When we finally started talking, everything just clicked. We studied together, walked home side by side, and texted each other late into the night. Soon, we were known as the inseparable pair. Some classmates called us the couple that never fought. Others rolled their eyes, saying it was all an act. But we didn't care. What we had was real. Of course, not everyone was happy for us. Some girls liked Jackson too much to hide it. They flirted shamelessly, and when he didn't fall for their traps, the jealousy turned ugly. The boys who thought I was too much for Jackson whispered lies behind our backs. But nothing broke us. Every insult only made us stronger. Jackson came from a tough home. His dad was never around, and his mom worked 2 jobs. I came from a family that looked perfect on the outside, but cracked on the inside. Jackson was my safe place, and I was his light. We promised to make it through together, graduate, go to college, maybe even get married someday. But everything changed the day I disappeared. I was walking home after drama club practice when a black car pulled up. I thought it was a teacher, maybe someone offering a ride. Before I knew it, a cloth was over my mouth, and everything went dark. I woke up in a basement, tied to a chair, bruises on my arms, fear in my chest. The faces were familiar. I'd seen them in the school hallway, the guys who hung out near the lockers, always skipping class, always sneering. They were part of a gang nobody dared to report. They thought they could scare me, keep me quiet. They wanted to teach me a lesson for showing off and making their girls feel less. They said Jackson needed to pay for stealing attention. At school, people panicked. And when the police came looking, those same gang members told a terrible lie, that Jackson had been obsessed, controlling, and that he had something to do with my disappearance. I'll never forget the look on Jackson's face when they dragged him away in handcuffs. He didn't fight back. He didn't cry. He just stared at the ground like his world had ended. It felt like a nightmare. But even in that dark basement, I knew something they didn't. I had seen their faces. When you're locked away in darkness, it's hard to believe in light. But the truth, it never stays buried for long. I was still in that basement, scared and hurt, but I held on to the one thing they couldn't steal from me, hope. I kept replaying Jackson's face in my mind, remembering how he held my hand every morning before school, how he whispered, "You and me against the world, Chayla." His love was my fuel. The days felt like years. They didn't feed me much. They tied me tighter whenever I tried to talk back. But I didn't beg. I didn't cry in front of them. I watched. I listened. I remembered. There were 3 of them, all from school. One of them, Devontae, was in my math class. The other, Marcus, used to laugh loudly in the cafeteria. The third, Ricky, always wore a black cap. They thought I wouldn't live to tell. But I would. I had to. Meanwhile, Jackson was sitting in a cold police station cell, accused of the unthinkable. The school was a mess, whispers in the hallways, fake tears, real fear. My parents were losing their minds, demanding answers. And Jackson's world? It was crashing down. The media painted him as dangerous. His classmates turned their backs. Even teachers looked at his desk with pity. But Jackson didn't break. Because he knew me. He knew I'd never believe he was guilty. And deep down, I knew he was praying for me. 4 days passed before a miracle happened. A little boy from the next building, out playing with his toy drone, saw something odd. He flew his drone near the house where I was being kept. That footage, God bless that footage, showed me banging on a tiny window, just once, before the curtain was pulled. His parents called the cops. The rescue team burst in the next morning. I remember the sound of boots, the shout of police, and the moment the door flew open. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. They carried me out, wrapped me in a blanket. I was pale, shaky, but alive. At the station, I didn't wait to rest. I told them everything. I described their clothes, their tattoos, even the cologne one of them wore. The officers listened in silence, then began digging deeper. Within hours, the gang was arrested. Not just for kidnapping me, but for other things. Drugs, threats, extortion. They had been terrorizing students for months, maybe longer. But no one had dared to speak up, until me. And Jackson. He was released that same night. I didn't wait to see my parents. I ran straight into his arms. He held me like he never wanted to let go, and I wept into his hoodie. It still smelled like him, familiar, safe. I knew you'd come back, he whispered. I knew you didn't do it, I whispered back. It wasn't just a hug. It was healing. The school held an assembly a week later. The truth was read out loud. The real criminals were named, and Jackson's name was cleared. Some kids cried. Others just looked down, ashamed they believed the lies. Jackson and I walked through those halls again, hand in hand. We weren't just a couple anymore. We were survivors. They tried to tear us apart. They lied, they hurt, they nearly destroyed us. But love, real love, doesn't fall. It fights back. It rises. After the truth came out, things didn't go back to normal right away. Some students still stared when Jackson walked by, like they weren't sure if they should cheer for him or avoid him. But he held his head high, and so did I. We had faced fire and came out stronger. The school principal apologized publicly. So did the police. They said it was a mistake, but to us, it was more than that. It was trauma. It was pain. Still, Jackson forgave them. That's the kind of man he is. We went back to classes, studied harder than ever, and slowly started dreaming again. Some of the students, who used to envy us now admired us. They saw what love looked like under pressure, and many of them couldn't believe we made it out together. Senior year was a blur of exams, whispered apologies, and late-night walks. Jackson would bring me flowers from the little garden behind his house. I'd write him letters folded in heart shapes. We didn't need grand things. We had each other. When we graduated, everyone clapped for us, louder than we expected. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was admiration. Either way, we held hands and walked across the stage as two people who had survived the impossible. Then life moved on. We went to college together, shared an apartment, and worked small jobs to support ourselves. Life wasn't easy, but after what we'd been through, nothing scared us anymore. 2 years later, Jackson took me to the same spot where he first told me he loved me, under the old oak tree behind the school. Only this time, he got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. "Chayla," he said, "we've been through pain, through lies, through hell itself. But I still want nothing more in this world than to grow old with you. Will you marry me?" I cried, of course. And I said yes before he could even finish the sentence. Our wedding was small. Family, a few real friends, no drama. I wore a simple white dress, and he wore a black suit with his lucky hoodie underneath. Just for me. A year later, we welcomed our daughter into the world. We named her Cherry. She had Jackson's eyes and my smile. From the moment I held her in my arms, I knew our story had come full circle. We had turned pain into purpose, wounds into wisdom, and love into a legacy. Now, when people ask how we made it, I tell them this. We didn't let the world define us. We didn't let fear control us. And above all, we never stopped believing in each other. Cherry is growing up fast now. Every night before bed, I tell her stories, not about princesses or magic castles, but about love that holds on. I tell her about her father, the man who was wrongly accused but never stopped loving me. And about me, the girl who was taken but never gave up. She listens wide-eyed, her tiny fingers curled into mine. And when she asks, "Mommy, was it scary?" I say, "Yes, baby. But it was also beautiful. Because through it all, love won. And it always will." I'm glad you learned something new and hopeful today. Subscribe, like and hit on notifications for more interesting stories like this. See you on the next one.